Buenas tardes a todos y a todas.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Yo voy a empezar
I'm going to begin
subrayando si nosotros
by
queremos
highlighting the fact
cambiar la
that we want to
sociedad,
change
tenemos
society.
que también
We need
cambiar
to also
nuestra
change
manera de entender
our
las
way
cosas,
of understanding
nuestra
things,
visión
our vision
del mundo, del universo.
of the world and of the universe.
Entonces, como una meditación, voy a empezar por leer un
I would like
texto
to
de
read
este
this
libro,
to you to begin
una
with,
visión holística
a
del
new
universo,
holistic
la obra de un
vision
artista.
of the world. This is the work of an artist.
Ahora menos presionados por la
Now we are
intolerancia
less
y
pressured
sobre
by
todo
intolerance and
sem o
especially
risco de experimentar
by the
una primicia del
risk of
infierno
experimenting
y la hoguera
the
inquisitorial.
true meaning of hell.
Podemos manifestar la
We can now
convicción
express our
de que
conviction
habría una
that there
única
will be
realidad
a single
que
reality
puede ser vista desde
which could be
diferentes
perceived
ópticas,
from different
profana,
points of view,
religiosa, científica
from
o
the
estética.
religious and aesthetical
No hay
and scientific
límites
points of view.
insuperables
There are not
entre la
limits
historia
that could be
natural y
surpassed
la historia humana.
in
Sino
human history.
continuidad
There's only
de lo
continuity
simple
of
a lo
life,
complejo.
from what is simple to the most complex.
Os humanos são tão naturais
The
como
human
uma
beings are
calabaza
just
ou uma
as natural
estrela.
as a pumpkin or
Todo
a star.
estaria interconectado.
Everything
Se em
is
algum lugar
interconnected.
existe isso,
If
que
there
chamamos
is
energia
something in the
vital,
world which is
não seria só
holistic
em
energy,
coração humano,
it would not be in the
sino
human
também
heart only,
nas
but
partículas
also in the
subatômicas.
particles, subatomic particles
Una
of every
unidad
living
cósmica
organism.
se extiende
A cosmic
desde
unit
la fusión
should be
nuclear
understood
en
from
las
the nuclear
estrellas
fusion in
hasta
the
la
stars
química de la vida.
to the chemistry that makes life
En
itself.
cualquier punto del universo, la
Along
materia
anywhere in the
conocida
universe,
es
the
la
matter
misma.
known by all of us
Dios,
is the same.
como el diablo,
God, just like the
estaría
devil,
en todos los detalles.
would be in every single detail of
Pero
the
no
world.
siempre hay ojos para ver
But
ni oídos
there
para
aren't
oír
enough
como
eyes
advierte
and
Jesús.
ears to listen and to hear
Mucho
and
antes
to
de
see
que
this.
Darwin demostrara que en la Tierra
Before
todas
Darwin
las especies
had proven that all the species have proven that
La
all the
intuición profunda
species are related.
de que
The
todo
deep
y
intuition that
todos
everything and
estamos
everyone
hechos de la
are
misma materia
made of the
prima,
same raw
bajo
materials
y aliento,
under the same
estaba
breath.
implícita en un relato bíblico
It was
de
simply
que
implicit in
Yahvé lo
the
creó todo.
biblical stories.
Heráclito en el siglo V antes de Cristo ya
In the
había
fifth
dicho
Christ before Christ,
todas
Heraclitus
las
had
cosas
said that
son
all the
una
things
misma
were
cosa.
one single thing.
Según Lao Tse,
In
que
accordance to
vivió
Lao
en
Tse,
China 6
from
siglos
China,
antes de Cristo,
5 centuries
las
prior to
personas y
Christ,
la naturaleza
the
son
people and
gobernadas
nature
por un
are governed by
principio único,
a
el
single
Tao.
principle, the Tao.
En la actualidad
At
muchas
the time,
personas buscan
many
los
people are trying to find
eslabones
the
que
missing links
demuestren
that
el
may
íntimo
prove
e inseparable
the
vínculo entre espíritu
connection between
y todo
spirit
el conjunto
and
del
the
universo.
whole of the universe.
Hoy existen personas
Nowadays,
convencidas
there are
de
people
que
that are
todos los
convinced
elementos
that all of
de
the
los
elements
reinos
of
mineral,
all the
vegetal y
kingdoms
animal
that we know,
están
vegetable kingdom,
dotados de densidad
mineral kingdom,
espiritual.
animal kingdom, are endowed
Ahora
by
muchos se
the
complacen en
same
poner en
spirit.
tela de juicio el
But
concepto de
many
materia.
continue to question
Esta no
the
es
concept
solo
of matter.
lo que ve los
It is not
ojos,
only
lo
what
que
our
imagina
eyes can
nuestra
see,
mente.
nor what
Em
our minds
aparência,
could
o
imagine.
Cristo del Corcovado é o Cristo de Cochabamba, que é muito maior do que o Cristo de Corcovado.
Whether we talk about the
Com seus
Christ
braços,
in
viva
Brazil or in
Cochabamba.
Cochabamba, which is bigger than the one in Brazil,
É
I
o
know,
pueblo de Cochabamba que nos acorre com muito carinho.
and the love that the people
Em
of
aparência,
Cochabamba
o
had
Cristo
provided
de
to us.
Cochabamba, com seus braços
The
abertos
Christ in Cochabamba here
sobre la
has its
ciudad,
open arms over
é
the
um
city.
bloque maciço
It
de
is a
granito,
massive
capaz
block
de
of
resistir
granite,
a la fúria de los vientos.
which can withstand the slash
Microscópio
of the wind.
eletrônico, sem embargo, nos
But it's
haria
just
ver esse bloque
a piece
como
of stone.
amontoamento de moléculas
It's
que
just
se
nothing but a
agitam
whole bunch of
velozmente
molecules
qual
which are
hormigueiro
fastly
quântico.
attached
Se
all
os
together.
braços do Cristo não
If
se
the
movem,
arms of a
é
Christ
solo
do not
porque
move,
as
they
moléculas
simply
em
don't move because
permanente
the molecules
colisão
are in
umas com
constant
outras,
collision with each other,
se anulam mutuamente e
and
dão
they
uma
are
aparente
joined
estabilidade
together
à
and they
matéria que
provide
integram.
an apparent stability as
Se Paulo
a single piece
Freire
of matter.
isso
If Paulo Freire
reconhecer com
could
seu
have
método
recognized
pedagógico,
through his
a
pedagogic
sabedoria
method
de
the wisdom
los que são considerados
of those who are
ignorantes,
considered to
e
be
nos
ignorant,
convenceu
and he
de que não
convinced
existem
all of us
pueblos
that there
nem
aren't
personas
any
mais
people
cultos que
or
outros.
cultures
Lo
who
que
may be
existe são
more
culturas
advanced than others.
paralelas
What
e
exists is
distintas.
cultures that are parallel
Não
to
há
each other and
nada de
different from each other.
assombroso
There's nothing
em
amazing
sospechar
in
que en
suspecting
las rocas
that
las plantas
cows
y
and
los
plants and
animales
all
también
animals
saben.
also have
No es
some
nuevo
knowledge.
el hecho de que los que
It
tratan
is
con
not new
animales
that
perciben que
those
estos
people that
tienen voluntad,
treat
hábitos y
with,
sentimientos
trade
de
with animals,
tristeza y
they
alegría.
understand that animals have
Más
sadness and
recientemente
happiness.
ha venido ganando espacio y mentes
These concepts
la
have been
convicción
gaining
de
more
que los vegetales
credibility,
están también dotados de
especially the
sensibilidad,
idea that vegetables have
gustos y
some
preferencias,
awareness and
incluso
sensitivity.
musicales,
They can
y que
react to
establecen
music
relaciones con
and
cada
mood,
persona.
and they have relationships
Talvez
with the
no
people
esté
that surround them.
lejano el día en que esa misma
Maybe I'm
certeza
using
se
an idea
extienda
that
a los minerales.
these ideas could
Nuestra
actually be transferred
postura
to minerals.
antropocéntrica en cuanto al
Our
saber
anthropocentric
puede
point of
encerrar en
view
su centro la misma
is centered
ilusión que los
basically in the
europeos tenían
same illusion
hasta
that
el
the
siglo
Europeans
XV,
had up until the
de que no
13th
había
century,
nuevos
that there
continentes
wasn't
sobre la tierra,
a
nem
single new
pueblos que
continent or
vivían en
nothing
los
to
bosques
conquer anymore.
tuvieron conocimientos científicos más
But the
avanzados que los
ancient peoples
letrados
of
de
Europe
París o de
had
Génova en
knowledge
esferas
about other
como la
cultures around the world,
matemática y la
and they
meteorología,
understood better
como
mathematics
ha sido
and
el caso de los
astrology
mayas.
and other concepts,
¿Qué quiero decir
much like
con
the
esto,
Mayas.
con esta lectura?
What am I trying to tell you with all of this?
Es que nosotros
Is that all
no
of us,
podemos pensar
we cannot believe
en una propuesta
that
alternativa
we
de
have an
sociedad
alternative
y de
proposal
cambios
for society
estructurales
and structural changes
sem resgatar
without rescuing.
que los pueblos
Why is it that
originarios
the
deste
originary
continente
peoples of this
chamam
continent
de Kumai Kausai é o bem viver, que eu prefiro traduzir
in
como
what is
vida
the concept
em
of good living versus living well,
não é o bem viver como viver melhor que
to understand
os
clearly
demás,
that
mas
to have a good
hacer
life, it doesn't mean to
de
have more
o
stuff.
necessário é o suficiente.
What we need is to live well, is to live with happiness,
Nuestros
with
países
what we need.
todavía,
Our different countries,
nuestros países todavía hacen la medición de su
they're
riqueza
still measuring
a
their wealth
través del producto
through the
interno bruto,
internal
que
net
es un equívoco
product.
matemático.
and it has a
Porque
mathematical calculation.
Giuseppe tiene una gallina, yo tengo otra.
Giuseppe
Si yo
has
estoy
one
con las dos
chicken and I
gallinas,
have two.
el
If
producto
I have two
interno
chicken,
bruto va a
my
decir
net
que por
internal
cada
product
habitante
is going to be that
hay
for
una
every
gallina.
inhabitant
Cuando yo
we
soy
have one
propietario
chicken.
de las
When
dos,
I am the owner of both of them, then I have more power than the
Producto
others.
interno bruto es
So
una
the net
manera
internal product
ideológica
is
de
an
cubrir
ideology
la
to
desigualdad social,
cover
la diferencia de
social
clases.
inequalities and the inequalities of all the classes
ONU
within the countries. The
La
United
ONU
Nations organization
propone ahora
has
um novo
proposed
índice,
a new
é o IDH, é o índice de
index
desarrollo
for growth
humano,
and
que es mucho
human
mejor,
development, which is much
mucho
better,
más sensato
a lot more
que é o
logical
Producto Interno Bruto.
than simply the net
Pero,
internal product. But
Pequenísimo país de Asia
a
llamado
small
Butón,
a country in Asia called Bhutan
el FIB,
had
la
proposed
felicidad
to live
interna
happily,
bruta.
to have the internal
Entonces nosotros
net
tenemos que ir
happiness.
por ahí.
So we ought to lead ourselves
El
in that
bem vivir
direction.
de los pueblos
What does
originarios.
it mean to live well?
O sea, ¿qué cosas necesitamos
What do we actually
para
need
ser felices?
to be happy?
No para ser
Not just
felices, una minoría de la población del planeta.
To allow a minority of this planet,
Los
the capitalist
20% de la población
minority
del
of this
planeta
planet, to
que
have
acaparan
happiness.
80%
The minority of this
de la
planet that
riqueza
retain
del planeta.
80% of the wealth of this planet.
Mucha gente habla
Many
del
people
fracaso del
talk about the
socialismo en
failure
Europa.
of socialism in
Y
Europe,
yo me espanto
and
que la
I
gente no habla del
become
fracaso
really
del
scared
capitalismo en el
that
mundo.
nobody talks about
Porque
the
el capitalismo
failure of capitalism
ha
throughout the world,
fracasado
because
para
capitalism
4 mil
has failed
millones de
for
personas que
4
viven abajo de la línea de la pobreza.
4.0 billion people in the world
Si
who live
nosotros-
below the line of poverty
Si
throughout
nosotros
the
que
world.
aquí estamos
If we here, who are present here
no
now,
somos víctimas del
we're not the
capitalismo,
victims
es
of
por una
capitalism,
sola
it's
razón,
just for one reason,
porque hemos
because
ganado
we
en
have
la
won
lotería biológica.
in the biological
Ninguno
lottery.
de nosotros
None
ha
of us
escogido la
have
familia y la
chosen
clase
the
social
family
que
and the
nació.
social class in which we were born.
Y este mundo,
And this
de
world,
cada 3 personas que
3
nacen
out
vivas,
of 4 people that are born alive, 2 of them are born in poverty.
entonces para nosotros
So for
haber
us
nacido en
to have been
condiciones
born
mejores
in better conditions
nunca debería
should
significar un
not be
privilegio,
for us a
sí una
privilege.
deuda social.
It should be a social debt.
estamos aqui
We are here
falando de ecologia.
to talk about ecology.
Em los anos 70,
In 1970, in the
em
1970s,
Brasil,
in Brazil,
todavia havia
there was still
ditadura militar.
a military dictatorship.
E nós outros de la izquierda de
And we,
Brasil,
the left wing in Brazil,
mirávamos com prejuízo
we were prejudiced about
la gente que hablaba de
the people
ecologia.
that were talking about
Isso
ecology.
era coisa de verdes.
We thought these were just,
E com isso
hippie green
hemos
people.
prestado grande favor à la derecha.
And because of that, we
Porque
supported
se hay
the
tema
right wing.
que não
Because
hace
if there's an
distinção
issue
de classe,
that is,
de
it
género,
doesn't
de
separate
edad,
classes or gender
e
or
incluso
age,
de ideologia,
or even
é
ideologies,
o tema de la
it is
preservación
the
ambiental.
issue of climate preservation.
Tontos de nosotros
We
de la
were fools
izquierda que hemos
In
tardado
the left to delay so much
em
our thinking
reconocer o mérito
to
do
realize
caso de
the
Brasil de
emeritus
Chico Mendes
credit
é o
of
grande defensor
Emílio Gervais in Brazil,
de la preservación,
who fought for the preservation of
é
nature
o trabajo
and the work
de sustentabilidad
to
en la Amazônia
have
brasileira.
greater sustainability in the Amazon in Brazil.
Chico Mendes ha sido
Chico
profeta,
Mendes was a
pioneiro.
prophet, a pioneer.
Ahora sim, agora
Now,
somos todos
We are now following on his
por
steps,
salvar la vida en un
and we
planeta,
want to
por
save
salvar
the
la
life
vida
in
del
our planet,
planeta.
to save the life of the planet.
Pero
But,
vamos incorrer en grave
but we're going
riesgo
to incur into
si no
serious
metemos
risks
en la
if we
cabeza
don't
de que no
get
hay
very clear in our
salvación
heads
para el
that we don't
planeta
have
si
salvation for
no
the
hay
planet
anulación
if
del
we cannot
capitalismo.
destroy capitalism
Son
completely.
dos cosas
These are two
incompatibles.
things that are not compatible.
Preservação ambiental
To preserve the environment
e sistema fundado
versus
en
a
la
system that
ganancia
was
privada son
funded in private earnings.
ontológicamente
These are
incompatibles.
completely incompatible.
O que significa
What that means
que nosotros que
is that
luchamos por
we
eso
that fight
por esta
in favor
bandera,
of this,
tenemos que estar atentos
we have
en
to
este
pay
momento
attention at this
político de América
moment
Latina,
of this
que
political, historical moment in
califico
Latin
de
America,
primavera democrática.
which I think is like the spring
América
of
Latina en los
a
últimos
true
50
democracy in
años
Latin
ha
America.
pasado por tres grandes ciclos,
In the
períodos
last few years,
políticos.
we have had
O primero
three important
de las dictaduras militares.
political
Todas
changes in Latin America. All
por la
the
Casa Blanca. Y ustedes saben
military
por qué nunca
dictatorships
hubo
were
golpe de
sponsored
Estado
by the White
militar
House
en los
in the
Estados
United
Unidos,
States.
porque no hay embajada americana
Why
en
is it that
Washington.
there isn't an American
Es la
embassy in
la única
Washington?
explicación.
That's the only explanation. We have American embassies in every country where there has been
Este
military
primero
occupations.
período ha
This initial
costado
period
mucho dolor,
had caused a lot of pain,
mucho asesinato,
many
mucho,
murders,
mucha sangre,
much
muchos
blood,
desaparecidos,
many people
mucha gente
that went
celada,
missing, many people that
y sobre
suffered,
todo mucho fracaso
and a lot of
económico.
failure in the economic side.
En los años 80
In the
llegó
1980s,
el segundo período
there was a second
de
period
los presidentes
of the presidents
neoliberales
who were
mesiánicos.
considered new liberal
Collor en
presidents
Brasil, Menem en
in
Argentina,
Brazil, in
Fujimori
Argentina,
en Perú,
Fujimori in Peru,
Caldera en
and
Venezuela,
Caldera
y por ahí
in
por otros
Venezuela,
tantos
and
países.
so on and so forth in different countries.
La gente,
The people,
los hijos
the
del
children of
Consenso
those
de
people,
Washington y de la escuela
and
de
the people
Chicago.
from Washington and the school of
Todos
Chicago,
un rotundo
all of
fracaso.
them a complete
Y
failure.
el pueblo,
And the
a través
people,
de su voto democrático
through
en
its
esta
democratic
democracia
vote,
burguesa, empezó
had
a
fought
elegir jefes de
this system
estados
and to reject the
de
chiefs of
origen
state
popular,
who were of
progresistas,
popular
que no
origin,
vienen de las tradicionales oligarquías
while
políticas,
trying to support
como Evo Morales en
new
Bolivia,
leaders
Lula en
such as
Brasil,
Evo
Chávez
Morales
en
and Lula
Venezuela,
in
Múnez en El
Brazil and
Salvador,
Chávez in
Mujica
Brazil,
en Uruguay,
Mujica in
Lugo en
Uruguay,
Paraguay, Correa en Ecuador,
Correa
y
in
por ahí
Ecuador,
va.
and all of those other new leaders of the people.
Preservamos este avanzo
And now
político,
we support this political change and
o
progress.
vamos a la barbarie.
Either we
Porque
support that
los
or we
Estados Unidos
are
no
going
son
to be
tontos.
subject to the United States, because
Ya
the people in the
hicieron
United
el
States,
primer
they're not
ensayo
stupid.
de golpe de Estado en Honduras.
They tried another
Y ahora
coup in
mantiene
Honduras,
Colombia y Perú como sus bases
and it's trying to
políticos,
retain Colombia and Peru
económicos y
as a
militares.
military, political,
Incluyó
and
en las
economic
elecciones
basis.
en Chile.
It had some influence in the
Entonces nosotros
elections
tenemos
in
que
Chile.
pensar
So we have to think
concretamente,
very clearly, very
¿qué
directly,
vamos a hacer
what are we going to do
para que toda esta temática
so
que
that all
estamos
of these issues
discutiendo
that we're
aquí
talking about here
pueda
could be effectively changed in the future. This happened because of the revolution of Cuba, of the revolution of the Bolivar countries, of all the changes that have been happening in Latin America. Let's not make a mistake, because our technique, our belief should be to support life. This is the greatest gift of God, and a country shouldn't be validated by the amount of things that it promotes or how much it sells or by how many people go to vote. People and a country should be validated in accordance to the quality of life of all the people, especially of the quality of life of those who are the poorest. I may talk and I may say a lot of things, but yet I have my own cook, my own person that cleans the house and everything. But I don't care and I don't think about how they survive and what kind of school do the children go to, and the fact that they go to just for a few years to school and then they have to be forced to work in order to survive. So we who are in support of social movements, leaders of political parties and of other institutions, we have these new proposals. We are going to strengthen this spring of democracy in Latin America as a central demand to ensure the preservation of nature in our continent. The protest of the environmental crimes that are happening throughout the world and who are destroying the native peoples of this planet, so they could actually teach us how to be happy by living with what we need, what is necessary, and not with excess.
Fraile dominico brasilero, teólogo de la liberación y autor de 50 libros sobre diversos géneros literarios y religiosos, ha hecho una interesante exposición que tiene que ver sobre todo con una evaluación de la democracia en Latinoamérica. Ha puesto en la mesa de análisis la posibilidad de defender esta democracia que se ha constituido a través de los nuevos presidentes revolucionarios.
Good afternoon to all of you that are here, to President Evo Morales, who had this extraordinary initiative, to the people of Bolivia and Cochabamba that have received us, and all those with so much hope and so much eagerness of work to do and transform things. We have come to this place. This panel, which I've been invited to take part of, was organized in the sense that we see in what ways we can make change. Where do we start? What do we do? Really, it wasn't but yesterday that civilization forgot old traditions. It wasn't but yesterday that it stopped being Mother Earth, and it stopped being the cosmos transcendency. And with this forgetness, it brought us that the capitalist system brought, even before to capitalism itself, where it started to work on matter and on all the things that are in this world as if it was of our property, and then man became a tyrant, a king of all creation. It brought us evil and all the things that we have seen here and we have talked about and we have repeated. But the damage is so big now that even the Western system has begun to think that they have overdone it, and they started to make conferences, international conferences, to see if it had any remedy, if there was any way to fix all of this harm that had been done. One of the first that had a very important document was called Our Common Destiny, and it was the common destiny of the people of the earth and of the earth itself that was made in Copenhagen in the 80s. It had an element that was resulted, it was for me very interesting. Scientists, when they got out of the conference, said something that wasn't expected. They said cities are going to stay as a monument, as a statue of when humanity went crazy. And how are we going to live? And they said, in technified agrary villages. This is a tip of what we're seeing here. It's a tip of what is already existing in this moment. About the earth, groups that because they have kept their ancestors' knowledge, and because they went into a indigenous farmer's dialect, and because they thought there was another way of living, they started to create a reality that from the urbanist technical point of view, they called rural urbanism. It means that people that created habitats in rural zones, and these habitats were tied together to ways of production, different ways of production, to have at hand our food and to have more energy than what we consume, and to be organized socially in a different way, in a more communitary way, more brotherly way, in a more friendlier way. Here is our friend Frei Betto from Brazil. I had the honor of spending a day with these companions without earth of the zone of the state of Santa Catarina, and I spent a day out of time. They were organized differently. They lived differently. They lived an equity, a total equity. A group of people that were chased by the police, who left dead in their way, and that after 20 years had an empire and a small society where drugs did not exist, where prostitution did not exist, police did not go in, and so alive that young people that would go work would come back. A society that was equal, where everyone earned the same, and where they had made an empire of this place that even garnered respect by other communities, other traditional communities. We are doing it. There are groups that are doing it. It's here, everything that Via Campesina and CLOC proposed. These are the new ways of working and of living and of organizing that are proposing the eco-villages, eco-aldeas, starting from a conscience of the middle class, but starting from a conviction in where we have to live in a different way. But what will we do with the cities? There are thousands and millions of people that live in the cities. If today we say that all of these people goes to the country to work, there won't be 1 centimeter left of Mother Earth. Really, Mother Earth will be destroyed. So we have to plan how we're going to bring back the cities. The urbanistic model has proposals. These proposals clash right away with interest created with the property of the earth, with the current legislations, and generally with intervention urban projects, with the city corrected so the cars work correctly, for transportation and for ways of communication, and not for people that live in it. A city fixed by urbanism that thinks of harmony between human beings and with Mother Earth has to use the tragic way of progress that threw away the old cities full of plants, perfumes, and trees to throw those buildings of cement that make a horrible life for those who live in there, and that create a city that is not sustainable. Starting making spaces in cities, social space and spaces of life, spaces where sun goes in, spaces where with spaces where habitants, where we can get together and live and get organized in a different way. Another main element of the modern urbanism, where sciences like ecology, geography participate, is not seeing cities isolated from their territory, there is a territory. The intervention, our intervention over this territory gives the good or the bad that we can cause this territory. The territory is limited by political matters, property, even if there's a tendency that it must be limited by the water. But this territory needs to be interpreted upon a deeper look, not a multidisciplinary look of all those who go work on it, but a historical look, a look from before, a view that tells us what this territory used to say about the people who lived in it long time ago, many years ago, many millenniums maybe. What does this territory say about, and what is it telling us now? But we don't have this view, but we do have the conscience that we must have it. We say we must have it, but we don't apply it. For example, all this territory of America, when conquerors came, they had a basic production for its food. President Evo Morales said it this morning, and added an element which is quinoa and amaranto. Amaranto, kiwisha, pira, bledo, as we may call it, is a super cereal. It has calcium like milk, it has iron like meat, it has all these amino acids that are essential to the human being and what it needs. And it cultivated all over America. It was sacred for the Aztecas. It was sacred for the Incas. It was sacred for the people who lived in the valleys of Caracas. And the Spanish satanized it, watching that with so few, such a small amount, the Indians could recover and regain its strength and its freedom. They satanized it, condemning it to death, the person who cultivated or had in its power any amaranto, and the amaranto practically disappeared. However, now from the universities and from the conscience that remains in the people, even here in Bolivia there were indigenous farmers organizations. It is back. Amaranto is back. But what happens with capitalism? Amaranto is cultivated in Mexico to sell it to the European Union, and it is cultivated in Peru to be sold in North America. And this food from the past is sold. It does not stay in America, and the government, the American governments, even the governments that, as Frei Betto says, are our hope, instead of regaining the amaranto, are still slaves. That what the system taught us and what the agronomy teaches us, and buys packages, technological packages of leaves and transgenics and of death to be put back in our fields. It is said here a while ago, to change the system, the way of production must be changed. This is basic. Our friend Frei Betto said it here. We have to change the way of production, to think, to feel, to wish, to see things, of imagining. We have to change everything. But like a famous Uruguayan man said, the one who doesn't change everything doesn't change anything. And we have the elements to change. There is quantum physics, there are experiences, life experiences of making things in a different way. There are the possibilities, scientific possibilities to do it. But what happens? Science is sold and tied down. Science is paid. Even if the scientist community confesses that 50% of the scientists don't believe in logic positivism, or believes in this kind of development, because they live from it, they have to do it. And because they live from it, they have to lower their heads. So that who changes everything has to put its view on science. It has to put its view on our universities, over our institutions, on professionals with our signatures, who are following this death of the planet. We are universities, science, and big institutions, national and international, who are doing this. Throughout several studies that have been done by capitalists, we discover that we are sitting on a terrible mistake of the system. a design error, an error of design they call it, and it's a design error because we're producing. Okay, I only have 5 minutes. We'll continue later, but there is an error because nature produces from the crib to the crib. A tree is born and reborn, and civilization, the technological civilization, produces from the cradle to death. What it has done becomes garbage. It is not recyclable. There is an infra cycle, and there are technicals to make recycling perfect. From the plastic, aluminum, iron, we could have a society totally abundant if everything that is natural is recycled, going back to nature, and everything that is artificial we recycle to reuse it without breaking the earth. With what we have only, there is a society of abundance before us. Well, there are other things that I wanted to talk more profoundly about, but I would like to end with this message. We have the elements at hand. We have the techniques to change. There is the political will of many presidents, of many people, of many of us to do it. And there is also the need that we ask that this is applied. But they tell us, how are we going to do it if aren't we all dreaming of going to Miami, watching TV, take a drink, throw ourselves anywhere in the sun, and not take care of anything? How are we going to change all of this mass of people that are captive of the system and things differently? It's very easy. The system has given a substitute to reality. It has given consumption. It has given drug. It has given them TVs as a substitute to change reality. But there is nothing that gets more of energy and a will of living than reality. There's nothing that can take people away from their captiveness. We have seen how the schools, everyone gets together, and we can see it takes everyone out of their TV, their PlayStation, and goes to work with the earth, with their hands, and get their own fruit, and play an instrument, and go dancing with the people of the streets instead of seeing how others dance. If we talk about Mother Earth, my dear friends, let me call you brothers, because we will be all sons of Mother Earth. So, I tell you, to end, dear brothers, the solution is within us. It's here. It's being lived here. It's living with us. It exists. There's lack of knowledge and decision and politic decision to get them to work. And the knowledge, because people are very well oriented politically, don't have the knowledge that it can be done. Let's not trust universities and change things. Let's change things. Let's tell every university student that tell us not only what they have learned, but what they have not unlearned, to understand that we are sons of Mother Earth and that the cosmos will mark our transcendency.
Por la Universidad de Córdoba, Argentina, especializada en bioarquitectura y hábitat sustentable. Ha participado de este foro debate. En estos instantes va a hacer uso de la palabra el padre Xavier Albo, que también es otro de los panelistas en este segundo encuentro, en este segundo panel.
The problem is that I have nothing new to say about new models. You have said just about everything. I have more questions than proposals. I don't have any different dreams. I would divide my questions into two areas, just like Frei Betto, my dear friend. Just like here in Bolivia, Xavier Medina, they have talked about quantum physics and how everything is to a single unit. Gaia used to say everything cosmos, which now is being referred to as Mother Earth. I'd like to show something to Bolivians, which they already know, that these future dreams, they're in the embryo stage, in the originary peoples, but also in different parts of the world, but mostly thinking about those who are not from here, while under the influence of David, who is here, my dear Chancellor, to tell you that there are certain other issues like summa kamanya, which means living well, which is in greater respect of the people from Ecuador and Quechua. Kamanya means kausai, which Kamanya means is usually translated as living well, but in Aymara, as well as in other languages, in Quechua not so much, there are two ways of saying life. One is hakanya, which means to live, in contrast with being dead. And for example, there's the example of a stone, of Frei Betto. But even a stone has molecules and atoms and so on, which are constantly moving, and that's another way of analyzing things. But it actually means to live together, and to live together with one another. And summa means to live with everyone. So I'm going to tell you that there are three different expressions of kamanya. For example, one of the things that kamanya also means is that when a place that is warm and protected from all the winds, constructed with a series of stones from the various angles, and from that point of view, one could take care of the cattle. It is almost an image of what the world would need to do now to take care of the world. We need to create a kamanya, a resting place from which we could oversee and take care all of the flock, all of the cattle, all of the world, all of the people. Kamawi is also said. Kamawi also means dwelling, or the gathering of people who usually get together to speak and to spend some time together. This is the way in which we need to work, and in the way in which we need to live, which is the central condition to be able to live with one another. And third, kamasa. Kamasa, it is the character, the way of acting, the value, the guts, the courage, the energy. And we collect this concept from the cosmos, from Mother Earth. Imagine all of us standing, holding hands together and looking at the sun. And from that, a word has been derived, Kamiri. Kamiri is a place where the oil is extracted here in Bolivia. Kamiri is not known in ancient times because of that. Kamiri actually means is to have wealth. But it doesn't refer to wealth with like money. Kamiri means to administer the wealth that they have and to share that wealth with others, assuring that everyone is happy. And how do you say poor? And poor, that's kind of funny. It's not mentioned as someone that doesn't have anything. It's wakcha, which is the opposite to kamiri. And what is wakcha? The literal translation of wakcha, it means orphan. In my community, there was an old 70-year-old man who used to come here all the time. He says that I am an orphan, and we would laugh. Maybe his father would be 112 years old. What he meant is that I don't have anybody. I am alone. That's what for them, that's what it means to be poor. So, kamanya is the idea to live all of us together in the same home, and this is Mother Nature, and where we can all live all together and happy. The most ancient dictionaries of the Aymara language, I have analyzed all of these issues about living, and sometimes it would include Hancaña, which in Quechua and was Camaña, which means not to be dead, which means to be alive, like a plant or any other thing. But in contrast, to live in peace, to live in wealth, the happiness, which is Butano. Then they would say Moxapi Camaña, to live sweetly. This is something that is read by the Buddhists in Budan, and they agree and they are happy with this sort of concept. Therefore, from that wisdom, this local wisdom, there are many ways of dreaming of what the world should be like and the whole universe, as we had mentioned before. And it's not just that. I always remember, David, something that you mentioned, something that you had studied at the university. And he was proposed to go to another indigenous community, and she went to the community of Chiquitos, and he was there, and we were curious to see with someone like him who is an Aymara living with a different indigenous community. And when he came back and I asked him, how was it like, and he said it's all the same. They think exactly the same as we are. If you can analyze all of these peoples, all of these indigenous peoples, these ancient cultures, we begin to find a lot of coincidences which make us think seriously that all this progress and all this new way of life, if we oversee that from the point of view of having more stuff, and yesterday and today it has been perceived as the obstacle to our for our planet to be saved. In Guarani and in our political constitution, this has been included, which is called Vivir Maray, the earth without evil. There are different ways of pronouncing this. In Paraguay they pronounce it differently. In El Chaco they pronounce it differently. But it is the land without evil, and something that has been studied a lot. And this was summarized by the various experts as like the land of Her, which is humid and moist, filled and fertile, where everyone can work together. Even in Brazil, they have the concept of Motenau, of working together, where everyone shares the production of this work, and with abundant drinking and abundant food for everyone. And Ibir Maray, which is to living well. And we can continue to find other similar cases, which are for those people who are related with the Christian Judeo belief, Shalom, peace be unto you. It's the same mechanism, it's the same belief. In Christian belief, we often talk about in Christian belief is not to have more, is to be more, to live a plentiful life, to be someone, not to have things, not to have more property. It's the same idea of Camaña, of Ibamare, the Buddhists that were mentioned through Bhutan and so on. One thing about Frei Betto is that I agree with the concept of happiness, but I wouldn't translate it exactly like that, as brute, as the net internal product. The ones that created this system were brute. It's a brutal system that allows some people to be happy and the remaining element of the world to be enslaved. It should be completely different. It should be a system that shares happiness and peace. I believe that somebody in Bangladesh said, I'm not really sure, which indicated that within the Human Development Index, now the task of this human being is not for all of us to have a bathroom working in our homes or to have medication and so on. It's the ability to be able to create a system with happiness and a system where everyone shares everything that they have. We had the visit of Dominique Temple, who was from France, and he was talking about the issue of affection as part of living well, is to share, which is an ethical concept to be a part of everyone, and that is something that has to be rescued. Now, when I was preparing myself to come here, I saw on internet and I saw a very interesting text, and it was kind of like a blog, and it was kind of nice, but it's easy to say, but how do we do it? How do we do this? How can we move on? And there was there a huge problem. It is easy to dream, but how can we do this? This is a central structural issue that had been said in the past and that I had repeated in the past, that as long as there is a structure of power where some are allowed to collect as much wealth as possible and some have to work for it, I'm not going to continue repeating this same thing, but perhaps a previous step to reverting the system is to measure how do we get closer to this element, is when we compare ourselves to other countries. Aside from Bhutan, I don't know about any other country that measures happiness specifically as they have done in such an interesting manner. But instead, we have to think of other means to gauge happiness. We have to appeal a little bit in the case of the relationship with nature. We would find certain indicators. We don't know exactly how to measure all of it, about the carbon dioxide emissions and all these things that could be measured. But in regards to actual happiness and living well, I think we have to appeal to respecting the series of cultures that exist and who live in different ways. Within this way of thinking, what I don't know exactly how we would do is that these same peoples, that they have these interesting ways of, specifically here in Bolivia, which I know the best, they themselves, they shouldn't just blame a system. They should internally make some true changes and create new conditions. And I'm going to propose some examples. Many people who live in urban areas, perhaps we don't have such huge cities like in Argentina or Brazil or Mexico. Our cities are a lot smaller, but living together as human beings is related to the amount of trash. In La Paz and in other cities, in Haiti, with the recent earthquakes that they have had and all, the human disasters that they had suffered. In La Paz, if we would have a earthquake, it would be just like Juan Bautista had said, the whole city would disappear. But the idea of urban living, it's an enormous challenge. How do we revert that? The demographic growth has to seek other ways of working with nature, and that's very difficult. Another issue, which I think it is very important also, is that when the peoples of a particular place go to another place, and in the cases of colonization, the relationship of the peoples of those places, the people that come from other communities, they often encounter many problems. We often say, long live coke production, but coke production also leads to other problems. And another problem that I wanted to say is mining. Bolivia is a mining country. The mines, they often look like a city that has been bombed or destroyed. That is the richest sector of society that profits from this, and the poorest sector of society that live in these mining areas. And lithium and other minerals. It is now the new struggle, just like it happened in Ecuador and in other countries, between Acosta and Correa. We need money, we need oil. Now we have lithium here. How can we stop all of this? The resources that we need, and which are provided by nature. But we have to try to consider all of these resources by trying to share them fairly and adequately without violating the earth.
Xavier Albo es teólogo y filósofo. Ha hecho una exposición temática de lo que es el vivir bien, y ahora es el momento de la intervención del canciller indígena boliviano David Choquehuanca en este segundo panel que se desarrolla acá en el Coliseo de la Univalle en Cochabamba. De este encuentro, de esta conferencia de los pueblos que marca un tono diferente, con la música autóctona que está presente también acá en el Coliseo de la Univalle.
Muchas gracias. Quiero empezar
I would like to start by thanking for the presence of all of you and by congratulating for the presence of the socialist leaders of the world, the presence of the social movement, of international organizations, of members of parliament, of scientists, of university professors, of all of you, because without your presence it would not have been possible for this World Conference about climate shifting of the right and the rights of Mother Nature. Brothers and sisters, our mother is ill. Our Mother Earth is contaminated. Our Mother Earth is damaged. And human beings are in danger of disappearing. The planet is becoming warmer very quickly. The climate is not the same as before. The rains are not normal. This is the product of the limitless industrialization, the competition, ambition of more for more and more profit have destructed our environment, have destructed our planet Earth. The capitalist model that has created inequalities and imbalance is the leading cause for this destruction of the environment, as it has been expressed, and everyone seems to coincide on the same concepts, and all of the leaders of our continent agree on these issues. We are here facing a world in which the Western society continues to apply the demands of the market, the development strategies, the recipes of limitless development, constantly more sophisticated and complicated to create more profits for private companies, for these transnational giants, even though they know that development has failed because the model of development that Western society had provided had not solved any problem. In contrast, it has created much imbalance, much inequality within our beings, among us, and between men and nature. And this development, which has been implemented by the Western society, this model of development of Western society, simply tries to find a better life, and it has been able to do so better than others, and it has helped for certain countries to have a better life than other continents. It emphasizes that we must abandon the development model. It forces the indigenous peoples to abandon the traditional ancient forms of survival, and it tries to dismiss the willingness of us to surpass ourselves, and it leads us to believe that development is the salvation for Earth. But this crisis, we know that this development model that had been implemented up until now is not salvation. Quite in contrast, it is because of this development model we are now being faced with this world crisis. In the world, the leaders, the social movements, the chiefs of the world, they speak about the crisis of values. They talk about an energetic crisis, financial crisis, alternate feeding crisis, institutional crisis, climatological crisis, nothing but crisis. But the Western society is currently in crisis. The development model, it's at the hands, it is to be questioned by all of us brothers. That's why we have been talking about so much research and about the implementation of a new model of development, and we talk about a sustainable development, a sustainable development, a harmonic development, a development with identity. The development model is being questioned. That is why we are not seeking to find a better life. We as indigenous people, we try to find a means for us to live well, because this better life has failed, and it has wounded to death our Mother Earth. Our Mother Earth is ill, and it's dying. But in contrast to this crisis, in contrast to this chaos, there's the proposal of the indigenous peoples, a proposal that has survived 500 years. The indigenous peoples have preserved their own values, their own codes, their own principles, their own ways of organization, which do not only guarantee the balance with themselves, but they guarantee the balance with our surroundings, balance with other peoples, with other communities, and the balance between us and nature. This proposal today is emerging once again in response to this crisis. We're talking about principles such as Tumpa, which is the obligated control that has to reign among all of us. Now, we don't care about, for example, the UAS in Colombia. We don't care about the problems of the Shuas in Ecuador. We don't care about our brothers in Africa. We don't care about our brothers in the Middle East. How our brothers in the Palestinian area. We only care about ourselves, because we don't practice this central principle, this fundamental principle, which is Tumpa. Tumpa means mandatory control that must exist among all of us. We have to recover these principles to guarantee the balance among people, the balance between men and nature. Another principle of All of this is Tama. We have to be aware that all human beings are part of a great family. Tama means the great family. All of us belong to a big family. And when we talk about a large family, we also talk about human beings. That means Takpacha also, which means everything that surrounds us, everything that has life. That is Takpacha, everything that has life. We as human beings, we feed from the milk produced by our Mother Earth. A plant feeds from the Mother Earth just the same. A tiger or a jaguar, a llama, any animal feeds from the water of our planet. That's why we say brothers and sisters. When we talk about the great family, we're talking about this huge family. That's why we want to have harmony with all of these elements between man and nature. I also talked about Kamasa. If we talk about these principles and we begin to apply them, we're going to recover the Kamasa practice, which is going to help us to awaken the community energy. We need to awaken this energy to fight, to move forward, to defend life. And there's another principle that we need to apply, which is a principle in Aymara, which means to have dialogue, that we have to communicate one another. Brothers and sisters, we have the right to life, we have the right to water, we have the right to clean air, we have the right to live in harmony with nature. The proposal of the indigenous peoples goes beyond living, having a good life. It goes beyond defending democracy. Our problems cannot be solved through democracy. Our problems should be solved through mutual consensus, through mutual understanding. The minorities have subjected the majority of this world. This is not democracy. And to subject our brothers is not having a good life. It's not living well. We all have the right to be heard. We all have the right to participate. And when all of us participate, when we all listen to each other, we draw new conclusions through mutual consensus. This doesn't only mean to construct a new society. It means to participate in a new society, and our struggle goes beyond that. It's to construct a new form of life that goes beyond the construction of a new society. Because if we only talk about constructing a new society, this excludes certain elements. It doesn't guarantee that harmony that we need between man and nature. Our struggle goes beyond liberty. We're not against liberty. We want liberty, but our communities, in our communities, we're not completely free. We complement one another. The grandfather complements himself with the child, the woman complements himself with the man, and human beings complement themselves with plants and animals. That's how we are brothers with them. So brothers, we have to fight for that complementary element of life, a mutual consensus, a life that complements one another. It's just like justice. When we talk about justice, we only talk about humans. The fight of indigenous people is not just justice, it's balance. To have a balanced life among all of us brothers. Just like that, it is human rights. We begin to talk about human rights with the United Nations. Then we begin to talk about collective rights. And then we talk about the rights of the peoples, of the indigenous peoples. And then these rights were declared. And the universal statement of the indigenous people's rights. Now these indigenous peoples are proposing that before the United Nations, for these two issues to be discussed, and for the Mother Earth to have her rights. and step by step we have moved on from individual rights to human rights, to collective rights, to the rights of indigenous peoples, and now we demand the rights of Mother Earth and all the cosmic rights of everyone in this planet. Not to construct a new society, we need to construct a new life. And for this, we have to work, all of us together. And we have to deal with all the principles that have been fought against for 500 years, these values that have been eliminated, or they have tried to eliminate for the last 500 years. And the word katatinaya, which means illuminate, the code kantatayati, it constantly constructs for the means to find light. We need men of light, men of vision, brothers. This is the Pachacuti code. In Tiwanaku, we found stones with Pachacuti code, which means to come back to the road of balance. Pacha means balance. Kuti means return. When we talk about the return to balance, when we talk about Pachamama, it refers to the Mother Earth in balance. Pachamama means the Mother in balance. We have proposed living well, because not to work is not to live well. Lie is not to live well. To exploit your brothers is not to live well. Maybe if you exploit others, you could have a good life, but that is not living well. To cheat someone is not to have a good life. To attempt against the life of Mother Nature is not to live well. Brothers, to conclude, I would like to say some concepts about living well. In Aymara, it means suma ignacaña. Suma ignacaña is equal to knowing how to work. Up until now, we have been shown two roads, one that leads to capitalism and one that leads to socialism. For capitalism, the most important thing is the obtention of profit, of money, of capital. Life is not important. Humans are not important. The people are not important. For capitalism, the most important thing is money, the profits, and having more value added to all that is produced. We are against this kind of proposal. They had pointed to us another road, which is socialism. For socialism, the most important thing is men, because socialism tries to find the means to satisfy the needs of humans, of human beings. The central unit for socialism is men. For capitalism is money. We agree with socialism. We want to satisfy spiritual and material needs of men. But it goes beyond that. For socialism, the most important thing is men. For capitalism, the most important thing is men. For us, the indigenous people, the most important thing is life. In capitalism, the last thing that they think about is men. For us, what we care about is our mountains, our rivers, our air, the butterflies, the ants, the stars, the air, our mountains, our clouds. That is first. And in the last place, there is men. That is the difference. That's what we are proposing as indigenous peoples. When we talk about living well, we talk about that. To know how to work. In capitalism, if you work, you have to receive money. If you don't get money, you don't work. In socialism, the work has to be a need. For all of us, the indigenous, the work is happiness. Work is party. For us, we work. That's why we work since we are children, because to work is to live, to have a party. To live well means sumaizcaña. In Spanish, another translation for living well is to listen well. And it also means to be able to speak well and to meditate well. It also means to sleep well. It also means to feed well. It also means to dance well. To live well is also to govern well. To live well is also to drink well. And to live well is also to love well and to be loved. Brothers, I agree with the sister who had said that the solution is relies on us. The solution, the people of this planet have the solution. They have the power for change. They have the ability to change. The peoples of this planet have the ability to change them. They have the ability to choose the president. We select the president in the parliament, and the power to change things relies on us, not in the president, not on the hands of ministers or members of parliament. The ability to change things is in the hands of the peoples. The real strength relies there. That's why we have to be aware and begin to practice these principles such as Tumpa, Tama, Kamasa. We have two different economic categories such as Seje, Pirwa, Kolka. We're trying to recover these categories, and we're going to share this with everyone, and we're uncovering these truths. We have only been working on this for about 4 years. The ability to administer, to govern ourselves. To govern ourselves is not to have an indigenous president in the government. To govern ourselves, it means to have the capacity to solve our problems ourselves, wherever we may be. Brothers, I would like to say some things that perhaps you may not agree. They say that the applauses, they contaminate the environment. They affect the environment. That's why we don't applaud when our leader comes here, when an indigenous leader comes here, when a president or a member of parliament says something that defends life. What we say is Halaya, and we push, brothers. Halaya means for life. Our palms, they inhale energy. When somebody, when a leader says, when a brilliant leader says, they had made shut up that speech, and with the applause we shut up that speech. And when we scream Halaya, we try to provide our support to continue supporting our leaders, our scientists that defend life. Halaya to the Conference of the Peoples of the World. Thank you very much.